Hey y'all, this is Bethany Lee from Pitter and Glink, and today I'm sharing a Bible journaling process video with you. I hope you enjoy as I share how I illustrate my faith. Today we're going to be journaling Proverbs 3 verses 5 through 6. Notice that I've put some wax paper folded behind my Bible page because I want to make sure to protect my pages behind the page that I'm working on from any paint or any drips that might occur. And I'm using watercolors today. I really love watercolors and what they look like in my Bible and on my Bible pages. And I just have a really cheap set that I bought from Michael's a really long time ago. I don't even remember when I bought them, but when I started Bible journaling, I started using them. Notice that I'm just taking a flat brush and just getting some water on my brush and dipping it into the little palettes of the paint that I want to use, and just putting them on my page in really no particular order. Just some colors that I think go well together. I really love pastels and purples and pinks and blues. So just blending that all together on the page. I'm not really cleaning off my brush too much in between colors, but if I need some more water, I just dip my brush in the water and add some more paint to the page. Notice that the more you kind of rub onto the watercolor little palettes, I guess that's what you call them, I'm not sure what you call them, but the more you rub onto those little colors, the more pigment you get. And I kind of think that once the page dries, the colors get a little more muted, so sometimes it's nice to go a little darker. Sometimes I like to get a smaller flat brush. I can't talk today. A smaller flat brush and add some little strokes and dots in different places. Maybe even if I feel like those are too uniform, adding some more water over the top. And that's the cool thing about watercolor, is the more water you add, you can blend your colors better together if you didn't like maybe what you did the first time. So I'm taking some darker purples and some darker greens, and just as I said, adding some little blobs of color here and there, in no particular pattern. There's really no rhyme or reason. I just keep putting color on until I like the way that it looks. And as I said before, if you get a little too much in one spot, you can add some more water and dilute the color a little bit and blend it in more with the background. You can do broad strokes, you can do little skinny strokes, any of that you would like, and you can add different colors. The darkers and the lighters look great together. As you can see, I like to start with the lighters and then add some of the darkers on top in that little pattern that I'm creating. Now I'm getting a skinnier brush, and I started out putting some dots on there, and then I thought, I'm just going to flick this all over the page. So if you get the paint really watery, you can just flick your brush and get little droplets of paint all over the page. One thing that you should do that I did not do, and I regretted it a little later, is that I didn't cover up the mirrored page, so the page that is opposite of the page I was working on. So I did get some splatters on that page. But if that happens, because you're in a hurry like me, you can take some water on a brush and try to blend it in some to get rid of that smear. And plus, if you're going to work on the page later on, it doesn't matter. If you get too dark of splotches, then you can get some more water on a flat brush and just blend it in. It's okay. But please do know that the more wet your page is, of course, the more delicate it is. So you need to be really careful. That's kind of why I like using the wax paper as well, because the page starts to stick to the wax paper. So that kind of lets me be able to pick up the page if I need to. And of course, then I dry off my page. And now I'm starting drawing some flowers. I just really love flowers. There's really no reason why I'm drawing them on this page, but I just like to put them on a lot of different pages. And since it's my Bible, I figure I can do what I want. I really am not an artist. I don't really like the way that I draw for the most part, but I guess I kind of fake it until I make it. I keep drawing with a pencil and erasing until I get something that I kind of like. And the great thing about the pencil marks, for me at least, is that it guides my painting, because I'm not really great at trying to freehand paint with watercolor or even acrylics a flower. So I've learned different little tricks of ways to draw different flowers, and you can see kind of what I'm doing in the video, of course. And it's okay if the pencil is showing up now and it looks kind of dark. We're going to fix that later on and you won't even notice it. And I do like to draw over my flowers too with a pen, and so the pen marks often get rid of the pencil marks anyway, so it's not a huge deal. And you know, when you start covering up with paint, especially if you use acrylics, you might cover up your marks. And so if you make a mistake, you can cover up a mark, or you can always erase it. That's the great thing about these pages and using a pencil on them, is that if you draw something and you don't like it before you've used paint, you can just erase it. And that helps me a lot. I will tell you, I do not like this flower. It ends up in the end looking like some kind of weird sea anemone or some kind of amoeba. I don't even know. But I didn't really realize, of course, at this point that it was going to end up looking like that, so that's why I left it. I tried to do a little bit of not really a pattern, but the flower on the top and on the bottom is similar, just to give your eye something that it starts on the page with a flower and ends with the same one, and I don't know, that just seemed pleasing to my eye. And then I got some of another watercolor palette that I really like. These are pearlescent, and you can't really tell as I'm painting how really pearly they do look, but they when you tilt your page in the light, you can see the pearlescent, and it's really pretty. The one downfall, at least for me, is that the colors aren't very rich or dark. They seem to get diluted a lot with the water. I mean, you can see the color from the palette that I'm dipping my brush into, and then you can see how it looks on the page. So it's pretty translucent. I wish that it was a little darker, but you know, that's okay. You'll notice in just a little while that I'm going to add some more paint anyway. I'm going to add some acrylic paint to it. But I did just decide to fill in the colors first with the pearlescent watercolor. And notice I can still see my pencil marks, so that I can go back in later on and trace those, or I can cover them up with some acrylic paint or whatever. And even with these watercolors, just like the others, the more you rub into that little palette of color, that little cake of color, whatever you want to call it, the more pigment you do get on your brush. You can get a darker color and try to maybe do the centers of your flower a little darker. I know you can't see that a whole bunch, and I do end up later on not really liking it as much as I thought I was going to at the beginning, but it does just add a little bit of dimension, which is always nice when you're doing something that is lifelike, like a flower. Although I don't know many flowers that look like mine that I've drawn, but like I said, I'm not an artist. Just taking a little of the goldish color and adding some of that to the center of the flower, and of course picking up some green and putting it on my leaves. Since I used the base of the darker color, I decided to add a little bit of the lighter green, just kind of to the edges a little bit. It didn't work out as well as I wanted just because of the thinness of the paint, but then I decided to turn to my trusty gelatos that I love so much because they look like lipstick, and I love lipstick. But one way that you can use the gelatos is just take a brush and wet the brush and just rub it on the end of the little lipstick or the gelato, and you can use it like a watercolor. And I decided that with it I was getting a little bit of a richer color, and that's what I was looking for. And it just gave me a little bit of a difference from the other flower color, because I didn't want all my flowers to be the exact same color, because that's just not what happens in nature most of the time with two different types of flowers. So with these, the rose looking one, I just used my pink gelato, and I'll link to the different supplies that I'm using in my blog post, so make sure that you visit my blog post so you can see all the different supplies that I did use in this video. I got a blue gelato out after I used the pink one, and I decided to paint my anemone amoeba flower with the blue gelato, and I just wanted a little coordination there, or maybe a little contrasting color, whatever you want to call it. But I filled it in with that, and I do kind of like the way that it looks now, but like I said, in the end I didn't really like the way that it turned out. I like this coppery color, and I decided that would be nice for the center of my blue flower, and I liked it so much I added a little bit of it to the center of the first flower that I worked on. And then just to keep things a little bit uniform, I added some of the same green, or the lighter green actually, that I had used on the inside of the bigger leaves. I used that on the rose leaf, and then I used the darker one again on the blue leaf, my little amoeba flower. And I added a little dark to it as well. I kind of like to work from the top to the bottom, so then I did the leaf on the next one, plus I already had that color on my brush. So it saved me a little washing off and changing colors. And I did the one in the corner as well, just so I didn't have to, like I said, wash my brush off too many times. Notice that I am using the same colors for this flower that's on the bottom as I did on the top, just because, you know, it looks a lot similar to the flower at the top. I'm sure in nature there are no two flowers that are exactly the same, but with these flowers I wanted to make them at least look somewhat similar. And you can see I'm trying to stay in the lines, but if you get out of the lines, it's not a huge deal, because when you go back in with pen like I do, you can cover up any little marks that you make. So, you know, Bible journaling, it doesn't have to be perfect. And it took me a little while to learn that, because I am a perfectionist. I tell people I'm a recovering perfectionist, but I have learned that when it comes to my Bible journaling, I'm probably going to make mistakes. It nearly happens every time that I'm working on a page. But I've learned how to fix the mistakes, and that's what we have washi tape for. That's what we have stickers for. That's what we have acrylic paint for, because those types of things can cover up your mistakes. And you know, sometimes you might just like to leave a mistake, because maybe you're the only one that will notice it. So don't feel like you have to stress out about mistakes. I decided to add some acrylic paint because I thought that the flowers were too muted for me. You can see that the one I'm using is Date Night Pink, and it's a Martha Stewart craft paint. I really love the Martha Stewart craft paints for working in my Bible. The colors are they're kind of thin when you first pour them out. They're a little more thin than some of the other paints that I've used, the acrylic craft paints, and I just really like the colors a lot that she has. This paint is probably one of my favorites. Just because of the brightness, it's almost like a neon pink. And notice that I did add a little bit of water using my brush to add the water, so that I could thin the paint out a little bit, because I didn't want it to be completely where you couldn't see through it. I wanted it to be kind of translucent, and I decided to add it to the middle of the petals on the top flower, and then to add it more to each petal on the rose, because I wanted it to stand out a little bit more. And I added some to the center of the bottom flower as well. Like I said, kind of wanted to keep those similar to the one on the top. And I'm just adding them, not necessarily like stamens on the flowers, but just as if that was just a little color that God kind of brushed on the inside of the flower. I love my Liquitex heavy body paint. This one I'm using is kind of an aqua looking color. Like I said, I'll link to the exact colors and supplies in my blog post. But I decided to take a makeup sponge that you can just get from the beauty department and add a little bit of a paint to a stencil. I bought the stencil from Walmart, and it has polka dots, and I like polka dots sometimes, so I decided to use the polka dot stencil to add a few little dots in just strategic places on my page. I wanted them I probably should have put them in the background first, although I don't know that my watercolors would have covered them up, probably like I would have wanted them to. But you'll kind of notice if I do any more of these videos, if you see my process or you see me do a page in person, that there kind of is no rhyme or reason when I start a page. I have an idea of like, hey, I want to add some flowers to this page, or hey, let's use these colors, but it always morphs into something else. And I'm okay with that. It's the fun part of the process for me, is never really knowing where a page is going to take me. Notice that a lot of these are kind of odd numbers of the dots. I'm not doing them exactly like they were on the stencil, because I didn't want that many of them, and I want them to be a little more varied and not quite as perfect as they were in the stencil. And please be careful, if you smush too much paint under your stencil, you're going to end up with weird looking dots, and you're also going to end up with extra paint when you move your stencil, because it's going to be underneath your stencil, and it's going to get on a spot where you probably didn't want it if you had too much on the back. You can always use a baby wipe to wipe off the excess paint. And just keep on adding the dots until you get to the point that you feel like it looks visually pleasing. I know that on the Illustrated Faith website, which I kind of stalk quite often, they mention that having the V around your page is kind of cool, just because your eye follows it from the top around the side to the bottom. I decided to use some apple barrel craft paint with a little bit of water on my brush to thin it down, to add some details to my leaves. And I decided just to do one side of each leaf with that brighter green. I thought it would kind of make it pop a little. and be just a nice variation to go along with the fact that I had the brighter pink in the flowers. And once again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I added some more of the Liquitex Heavy Body Paint. This is Light Portrait Pink, I do believe, and added a little bit of water to it and decided to add some more detail to my flowers. I am one of those people that more is more, and I keep on adding and keep on adding, I'm sure you can tell, until I get something the way I want it. Sometimes I add so much that I regret all that I added, but you know, like I said, it's part of the process. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's time with God, and it's worshipful, and I enjoy it. I put on my praise music and just go to town, meditating on the Word and meditating on this verse that I felt like I should illustrate, you know, singing along to my praise music and just having a good old time. It's very relaxing for me. The art paired with, you know, spending time in God's Word. After I dried my page, I used my trusty hair dryer. I decided to take one of my Pitt artist pens. They're my favorite. They're no bleed pens, and outline my flowers. And I tried to follow the pencil lines closely. You don't have to get it exactly right once again, but having that pencil there does help you make those petals look like you intended them to look to begin with. I decided to add a little detail to my leaves, some dots and some stripes just to make it kind of fun. There are different thicknesses of the Pitt Artist pens. I think I most often use the M, but I do like the F and the S. As I said, those are different thicknesses. F is a little thinner than M, and S is the thinnest of the ones that I have. Now we're getting to the little amoeba flower, and this is where it went downhill. I tried to outline it, and I don't know what I was thinking. And it started like haunting me at that moment when I kept looking at it as I was working on the other flower. I would look at the blue flower and think, that doesn't look right. It needs something else. What can I do to fix it? Because I've totally messed it up. So I went back in and I outlined it again and added some dots, and I made it even worse. Luckily, when I add my wording, it's going to cover it up so that it wouldn't bug me too bad, because if that was sitting there staring at me the whole time on my page, I would not be a very happy girl. I used a thinner Pitt Artist pen to add some more details, like some stamens to my flowers and some little extra lines on my rose petals, and you see that I filled in the stripes, or one of the stripes on my leaves, just to add that extra detail. Like I said, more is more to me. And then the dots that were around the flowers and around the top, I decided to outline those with that thinner pen. Then I started to add my letters, and I decided, because I had the craziness going on in the background, that I needed to add stickers. And this white sticker, I don't know if you call it a packet or what, but this white sticker set, I guess we'll call it, this white sticker set that I'm using here is probably one of my favorites. And then I have some other ones that I got online, and like I said, I'll try to link to all of the products that I'm using on my blog post. You'll notice that as I'm adding some of these stickers that they all don't show up all that well, but we're going to fix that later on. It's okay that they don't show now. We're going to make them pop later on. I do like to mix text or font, whatever you want to call it, of my stickers. I like to use different colors. I like to use some that are small, some that are large, some that are thin, some that are thick. Sometimes I stamp letters. In this case, I knew that if I used my black stamp pad, the letters were not going to show up that well, and it would kind of turn into like a mingled mess. These stickers actually here, I believe they came from Walmart, and I use my pencil. I know you probably saw that a while ago, and you're like, what is she doing? I use my pencil to help get the centers of like the O's and things like that out, because it's hard to do sometimes. I do have fingernails that help. If you don't have fingernails, you might want to get some kind of tweezers or something to pull the stickers off, especially the small ones. Once I finished that, I realized that I didn't want those two colors the same color of two letters beside each other. The great thing about these stickers is you can kind of peel them off if you're really careful off of the page. So through the magic of TV, I now have my stickers almost finished. I didn't want to bore you to death with me putting stickers on a page, so I'm finishing up my last word. The text, or the verse that I'm using, as I said, it is Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. And the verses are, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Isn't that a great verse? As I said, we were going to make the letters pop, and what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that we're going to outline our stickers, and you do have to be a little careful, because if you get too fast, as I do have a tendency to do, you probably might smear some onto your stickers. You can try to use a baby wipe to get some off if you end up with marker on your sticker, but it doesn't always work. Notice that I'm using a white gel pen. This is a Jelly Roll gel pen around my darker letters to make them pop. So that light and dark together combination works. And then I finish that up through the magic of television again. And I always love to use my Heidi Swapp date stamp with my Stays On ink pad. This one is jet black, to put my date on my page, because I want to know when I did this. So when I look back on it, I can say, I remember. And then I use my tab punch to punch out some scrapbook paper into a little tab. And I used my fuchsia pink Stays On ink pad and some little tiny stamp letters to add a tab that says trust. So I stamped out trust, and I liked it, but I decided that after I stamped it that I wanted to add a little to it, because like I said, for me, more is always more. So I took one of my Pitt artist pens, and I outlined my letters, and then I decided to draw around. I drew some hearts, and that wasn't enough, so I added some little dots in groups of 3, and then I added some more. And I used a Elmer's glue stick, one of the little school kind that's purple and it dries clear, to add the tab. And I took a little strip of washi tape and I just added that to the tab for a little bit extra color. Notice there's nothing on the back, and I thought it was a quick peek, but there's nothing there. So just remember, y'all, trust in the Lord with all your heart, acknowledge Him, and He will definitely direct your path. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If you get a chance, follow me on social media and enjoy what's left of your day.